Welcome to Boys episode 191. I am your host, Robbie Ray.
And I'm your other host, Joshua Jack, I guess.
Two hosts, one pod. We have a very, very special episode for you today. But first, some advertisements. BoysPodcast.com. It's a hub of all things boys. There you will find links to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as that golden donate button. If you're glad we're back, if we're bringing you those quality shows that we've all come to know and love, go ahead and smash that golden donate button. Send us a few bucks. We'd really appreciate it.
Boys is available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube. Leave a review on iTunes. Anywhere you can leave a review. It really help us out. Subscribe everywhere you can subscribe. That way it keeps you up to date on the new shit we're putting out to your ears.
Email us, boys@boyspodcast.com. Send us some feedback. Put your physical address in the bottom of the email. We'll send you out some free stickers. Comments, concerns, criticisms, guest ideas, topic ideas. Anything you want to send our way, do it, boys@boyspodcast.com.
Thanks to our sponsors, Anthem, anthembrewing.com at 908 Southwest 4th Street. That's the tap room. They're still doing pickup only due to the COVID-19 outbreak. You can go get a growler, get a sixer, just get some beers at Anthem Brewing. They're open 3 to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, weekends 12 to 5. And now through May 31st, all their core beers, anywhere you buy them, are significantly prices are slashed so you can get that beer in your gullet quicker and cheaper. Fat Bison, fatbison.com. You heard us talk about him time and time again. The guy makes beautiful signs. What else can I say? Go to fatbison.com. Get a custom-made sign or tray. You know what I thought, Robbie? Have we talked about this already? A wooden tray that goes over your bathtub, so you can watch like
nice.
so you can watch like a thing on your iPod, your iPad. Maybe put a candle or maybe a nice glass of red wine, and have something like etched on it that says, treat yourself or something.
I love it. Yeah, everything that Matt Bison makes, is handcrafted from quality wood, CNC'd, finished, painted, and delivered to your door. Tell him that Boys sent you, and he might give you a little discount. But don't hold us to that.
Champion Vintage, champion_vintage OKC on Instagram. Give them a check. And also, we're very proud to announce we are sponsored by Manscaped. If you're listening to the podcast stuck in your house with your girl, your boy, listen up. Manscaped can help you out and make the most of your time together. Shave one another. Shave yourself. It promotes clean hygiene when it comes to shaving your balls or your cooch. Can you say that? Will we get canceled for saying cooch?
Sure. Now you can say cooch. I mean, you do shave your balls or your cooch, so we call it like we see it here on Boys.
It's the only men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. You're probably spending more time than ever with your significant other right now. And let me tell you, if you don't keep it clean, they're going to know. Got to keep it clean.
Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0 Essentials Kit. It's the perfect tools for your family jewels. They sent Josh and I one of these, and let me tell you, fantastic experience. It was a real grooming experience. I shaved myself from head to toe, literally every square inch of my body, and Manscaped made it easy. Love it. Use it. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BOYS at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job.
That's 20% off and free shipping with the code BOYS at manscaped.com. Use promo code BOYS. Get your nuts together, people.
Clap them together.
Clap them together.
Can you make it clap with your own balls?
Make them balls clap?
Yeah, would that hurt?
Make them ass cheeks clap?
That'd give me a tummy ache. About the episode, we were joined by Leanor Ortega Till from Five Iron Frenzy. She's part of a new documentary that came out called Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s. You can check that out at facebook.com/ska movie. We talk about that. We talk about the Christian scene growing up. We talk about ska. We talk about nu metal. We talk about it all. And it was a really good interview, so we're going to get right to that. Yeah. Without further ado, on to the show. Welcome to Boys, episode 191. We are here. I'm Robbie Ray.
I'm Josh.
And our special guest.
Hi, I'm Leanor Ortega Till, unfortunately known as Jeff the Girl from Five Iron Frenzy.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So where do you live? You live in
I
Colorado?
live, yeah, so
Okay.
five of us in Five Iron still live in Denver, Colorado, but we used to all live in Denver back in the day. Back
Okay.
from the day means like 1995 to 2003.
Those were, you say the day, I say the glory days. I remember seeing you guys probably 96 or 97 in Oklahoma.
Yep.
I think it was at Outer Cafe. That might have been the first time I saw you. I mean, I
I
know
was,
I'm
yeah, I
sure
was
it's an
trying to
all
think of
blur.
all the Oklahoma shows, and it feels to me like they were either in weird, massive churches that you could
Yes.
really play hide and seek in,
Yeah.
or a warehouse district, yeah, coffee shops, just not really venues.
Yeah, exactly. I think this was a coffee shop slash church. So it was a church on the weekends, on
Right,
or on
party.
Sunday, but and on Friday and Saturday night it was a coffee shop that was. All those coffee shops were always run pretty horribly because it was like youth group people running
Yeah,
them, and for
right.
tips. So I remember seeing you guys there, and then I want to say I saw y'all at a big mega church in
Yeah, there was
Oklahoma
it
City
was
as well.
the new church show. It's the one where Reese came out in like all that thrift store like
Right.
a catcher's
Yeah.
outfit and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And we talk about it a lot on the show how those times for Josh and I were so important because without those venues and those bands like your band, we wouldn't have had much to do because Oklahoma there wasn't a lot going on in the mid 90s and late 90s,
Right. There's
And
a there's a my husband and I were talking about shows, and we were saying for some of these places, legit good music came through, Christian or not, but good bands came through during that scene where there might not have been a venue.
absolutely. And that's I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It wasn't just, oh, okay, these bands are okay. I mean, there were some badass Christian bands back
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I mean, everything from ska, punk, metal. I mean, I'm
Right?
I'm kind of a metalhead, so like getting to see like Living Sacrifice or Training for Utopia or all these other bands, Zayo, things like that. It was
Right.
like mind blowing for a 15-year-old kid that didn't really have any other options.
Yeah, especially in like small venues like Dogwood, seeing Dogwood in that tiny little like youth group room, like at the top of a basketball court. Like,
Awesome.
yeah, great
So I
stuff.
want to get into Pick It Up here in a little
Sure.
bit. But before
Sure,
we
sure.
pick it up, I want to go back in time a little bit and kind of talk about your upbringing and how you got into playing with Five Iron and things like that. So
Okay.
when did
It's
you start? When did you pick up an instrument the first time?
Yeah, so my mom was going to college when I was a little girl, and so I was with my dad in the evenings. And my dad he's pretty much Cheech. So if you know who Cheech and Chong is, my dad's Mexican American with a very thick accent, even though he's just from North Greeley. He's a
Okay.
North Sider. And so, yeah, growing up, we had a music room in our house. So we had saxophone, trumpet, piano, and my dad was convinced if you play the high notes, you're playing right on piano. Like those are the correct notes if they're really in the high range. Like he would jam to Stevie Wonder and uh, Temptations and Four Tops. And yeah, we just jammed. We had a bunch of drums in there, and my dad smoked in the house, and we had beer, those old beer, like neon signs from an
Yeah.
old bar. So it felt like a bar.
Yeah, like it was
Nice.
your own little
Yeah.
venue back then.
Yeah, and it was just he and I. And we would I mean, honestly, like we'd be emotional by the end of the night listening to, usually we'd end out with like something like Marvin Gaye's What's Going On and get kind of introspective. Spanish music, a lot of Tejano music. And yeah, just jamming and dancing and playing my instrument. So for me, music was entertaining, it was funny, and it was a way to just kind of release all the emotions of real life. Like it wasn't just listening, it was way more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
And how important was that for you and your dad to share that? Because I've always been a musician, so is Josh, but nobody in my family is a musician. So I didn't get to share that with my dad. And I could just imagine how special that would be, those nights that you guys spent together learning from each other, because he probably learned from you as he was teaching
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it was awesome, but that's what made it even harder. So when I joined Five Iron, I was my senior year of high school, so it was 95, and the guys kind of asked me to join, and it was really just nonchalant, like, oh, we're starting a side project, ska band. Do you want to be in it? And I was like, yeah, cool. So I started driving up on the weekends, and then in 97, when we got signed, and I told my dad, I'm quitting college, Colorado Christian University, to tour with 7 guys. And by the way, my dad's very strict, Mexican dad.
Sure.
it broke my heart because he was not supportive. He basically said, if you do this, if you quit college and you tour with these dudes, like I'm not going to support you financially and you don't have my blessing. So yeah, it was kind of a catch-22 because music was my connection to my dad. And then later when he learned about 5-iron, he was really disappointed. He didn't like the vibe. He said you couldn't understand the words, so it couldn't be Christian.
Right. Oh yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, he just, and I think more than anything, he was just worried for me, and way too protective, but didn't know how to voice that. So it kind of came off as threats that he thought I would follow, and yeah, no way.
Yeah, I remember my dad saying the same thing. You know, I love my dad to death, but he didn't quite understand I don't even want to say heavier Christian music, but anything that didn't sound like a hymn. You know, I remember playing Squad 5-0, you know, when I was probably 15, 16 years old, and he was like, this can't be Christian, you know, in a thick Oklahoma accent. This can't be Christian. Look at him. Look at him. And I'm like, well, you got a lot to learn, Dad.
They got tattoos. I was like MXPX. I was like, look, Mom, it's Christian. And like, he's got tattoos. I'm like,
yeah,
that's
cool. Devil's music. My dad came to a show. He came to a show at the Vineyard in '96, and he lasted through half of the Old West. And of course, obviously, I don't know if he could even understand "Let's Rape and Kill and Steal," which is one of the primary lyrics in that song. Maybe, I don't know. But he stood up and left, and it was like during the show, and I was just like heartbroken, like, bummer. But he did turn around. He changed his mind.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, he did. He had one of those moments, 11/11/97, which is when our newest album ever came out. That night, he came to the show, and it was sold out, and that's when we were doing the whole Star Trek thing. The whole show was a skit, so we stayed in character. And that was the first time we ever played Every New Day live. And it was one of those moments where, I mean, everyone thinks about this stuff differently, but we're talking like 1,000 kids going from moshing and crowd surfing to worshiping. Right. And my dad saw it, and he was just like floored. And later he apologized to me. He gave me a big hug. He said he was so proud. And now he's like my biggest fan, so pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's nice when they turn around. My dad was the same way because I started out my very first band. I was 14 years old when I picked up a guitar for the first time. I actually traded this kind of trashy kid on my bus route 2 White Zombie CDs for an electric guitar, and it was a very cheap, like department store crappy guitar.
I think you won.
I did. Yeah, I came out on top, and I remember it didn't even have the high E tuning peg, and my 14-year-old brain thought, well, I can just run the string through the hole and like wrap it around a nail, you know.
Yeah.
So I took that to practice, my very first practice, and I basically got laughed out of the building, you know. But yeah, my dad definitely came around. My first band was a Christian hardcore band, and we played Outer Cafe and.
You're kidding! Wow, I've never heard that before.
Right? I know. I had the X's on my hands, you know. We were really into like NIV and bands like that. And it was funny because I was the youngest guy in the band, but my dad came and saw us for the first time, and he was like, he did the same thing. He was like, well, is this Christian, really? Yeah. But we were, you know, we were good kids. Right. But then that kind of devolved over the years, and I don't know. I've always had a special place in my heart for Christian music. Like I even here in Oklahoma, we have a big like Christian superstore called Mardell's.
Oh, I've heard of it. Okay. I did something very rude, and I'm kind of not proud of it.
Do you want to tell us?
Sure. It's the kind of thing where I was this little punk rock chick back, you know, touring with 5-iron, asking Mardell's if they have Christian feminine products.
Oh.
Just being a brat, you know?
Right. It wouldn't surprise me.
And trying to impress the guys in the W's by how punk rock I was.
Yeah. Well, I'll still go in there.
But do they carry those?
I'm sure they have like testaments and stuff.
That's what I was going to say.
Some kind of
you guys want to know something funny? You'll love this.
Yeah.
Okay.
The girl whose dad invented testaments had a massive crush on Reese. And so we got a hookup. We had boxes and boxes and boxes of testaments to take on tour with us, to the point where you would get sick of them.
Whoa.
It was like the Christian Altoids, right?
Not
That's
even
a weird
that
thing
good.
to say.
That's
Christian
the thing.
Altoids.
They don't have that much. They don't pack a punch, though. That's the issue, right?
Yeah.
But I could imagine if you're on tour with, 6-7 guys in a van, fresh breath might be a game changer. It might be a big turnaround.
For me and for them.
Well, also, like, you don't have a lot of money, so, like, snack on them, man. Like,
no, we did. We did. Oh, yeah, that would pretty much be one of the sustenances. And that's kind of like the same time that we got sponsored by Power Bar and everybody in the band got constipated at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
You're supposed to have one with, like, 8 cups of water a day, and we had banana flavored, which is nasty. It's like a big lump of blah. banana flavored power bar, like 3 a day we were eating, and we all got stomach aches like 2 weeks in.
I'm just imagining it tastes like day-old banana bread, but like congealed.
Yeah.
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh, yeah.
And
that
the only
sounds
other
horrible.
thing we were sponsored by was I think Yahoo. As far as
Yoo-hoo?
food goes, Yoo-hoo, is that what you call it?
Yoo-hoo.
It's a chocolate drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go. So that's okay. That was a good one.
No, yeah, there was a that may have been the same year that Yoo-hoo sponsored Warped Tour, and they were like
was,
giving
yeah.
they
Oh,
were giving
yeah.
away bottles
That
of
was.
Yoo-hoo, and I'm like,
Yep.
cool, man, I'm not gonna spend $20 on a bottle of water. You get 2 Yoo-hoos deep. It's like 98 degrees outside.
It was Yoo-hoo and Monster. That's the
Monster.
terrible
Oh wow.
mixture.
Yeah, that's a good combo. I remember that Warped Tour, Josh, because they were handing out Yoo-hoo in like these little cups, and it's like 104 degrees. This Warped Tour in Dallas was on a concrete parking lot.
Of
There was
course,
hardly
they
any
all are.
shade.
Yeah.
And I'm like 8 cups of Yoo-hoo deep, just feeling sick as a dog.
Yeah.
And like I just need some water, so I'm gonna
You
go pay $5. You know.
You needed a balance of 4 power bars to get
Yeah. Really stopped me up.
and 2 testaments, and that's the Christian meal.
Yeah, that's what you really want, like in a van touring around the country. How many people were in 5 Iron at that time?
Well, the problem was we had 8 of us, but we
8.
always had friends, and we didn't say
yeah.
no. And
We
so
got
we'd have 8
The
of
merch
us. And
guy, yeah.
yeah, definitely. And that was usually like a guy that I had a crush on. So I'd convince the band to be like, this wafy little guy wants to tour with us, and we'll do the merch for like $5 a day and hanging out.
Nice.
Like, and then we always had like 2 or 3 girlfriends. Sometimes eventually would become wives, and we had wives then. And also we'd have like just friends, like someone, I'm writing an essay about music. Can I come on tour? Yes.
Sure.
Oh, I'm visiting from New Zealand. Yes, come. Just everybody, right?
And like
So-
everybody's got like a photographer friend who wants to take pictures on
No,
the road. So you
no,
got
we never
No.
had a photographer.
So, okay,
friend.
so what were you touring in?
A
so like
school
8
bus.
people, a bus.
Did
A
you
school
know this
bus?
is a school bus?
Okay, like a
So
mini
we
bus
bought
or
it.
a big bus?
No,
School
we bought,
bus.
Yeah, we bought
okay.
it. So we bought a 35-inch school. That might be wrong. No, it's bigger than that. The 35 comes from. It was $35,000. We bought a school bus found in Wyoming. This was Frank Tate, the owner of 5 Minute Walk, the president. His idea, because we couldn't afford a. We were going from vans, but we're a ska band, too big, and didn't want to pay for hotels. So the school bus we converted so the front half had 8 captain's chairs, and they could swivel all the way around and tilt back if you wanted.
Sweet.
And then on the top there was cubbies. There was 8 cubbies for each of us. And then on the top, like in front of the school bus where the driver would be, there was a massive TV, and we're talking like big, wide TVs, so the guys could play GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then we had 8 bunks that were separated by curtains.
That's cool.
And so I had my own bunk in between Micah, who rolls and is a big guy, and then Reese underneath me, who thought it would be a good idea to bring, mind you, these bunks are small, a full-size cello, a longboard, and a Darth Maul mask.
Oh,
And
wow.
a baby Ernie he sleeps with. Oh, and
Aw.
a full-size fan,
Sure.
My goodness. Yeah, the space would like close in on you really quick with all that stuff.
Dude, I was always fascinated by bands who would do that, like had the ingenuity to make their own tour bus. Like Green Day had the bookmobile that they turned into a cool little tour bus. But yeah, I mean, I could imagine being in a band of 8 people.
It was a lifesaver when we did go on Warped Tour, because without it, it would have been a deal breaker, because you can't keep up with the tour. The schedule is such that now they have bandwagons, which if I was a genius and if I had money, I would make a bandwagon, one in LA, one in New York, one in Denver, like pickup, because I think you have to go like in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, to get them.
Now, what is that?
So bandwagon, they created finally, after we were not a band, these vehicles where you don't need a CDL license. You don't need a special license. It's right underneath, like maybe 2 inches underneath. So anybody can drive it. It has, I want to say 12 bunks or 8 bunks. I can't remember how many bunks, and a little living room. So not like a tour bus, because it has a living room in the front and it has a TV in the front. And then in the back, it has a bathroom, which is a lifesaver, and a shower. So you don't need hotels, and anybody can drive it. Although Reese wrecked ours on the last day of the Real Big Fish tour, and we did have to pay, like the deposit was like $3,000. All he did was run into the stop sign on the same street of his house because he was exhausted and happy to be home. So his wife, we wake up, we're sleeping in his house, knock on the door at 5 a.m, and it's cops, and they just point to the stop sign is curled, and there's a long line on the bandwagon, right? And yeah, I shouldn't tell too much about that story because someone had more tickets than his wife had known about and got in pretty big trouble.
Oh, no. And what a way to find that out.
Yeah. But anyway, point being, those things are lifesavers because the only one inconvenience, which isn't massive with cell phones, is that there's the cab is separated from the back, so you can't talk to the driver. So, like, good thing for cell phones, you can be like, pull over.
Right.
Yeah, the first time
Gives
I saw
the driver
one of
a little privacy, though.
Oh yeah.
I guess,
Yeah,
like on
especially
long
because
trips.
in those, different guys in the band are taking turns. But what I was saying about Warped Tour is Keith, our bass player at the time, who's not in the band now, because I really think we burned him out, was the only one that he made a deal with all of us, and he said, I will drive every night for all of our 2 months on Warped Tour. He's like, I won't even have a social life. He's like, you have to wake up in the morning and there's like a drawing on Warped Tour. You find out when you're going to play.
Okay.
He would be awake for that so you can have an idea. Then he'd go to sleep and then he'd drive all night. And we didn't even see him on Warped Tour, just on stage.
Wow.
I know, kind of weird, huh? Why are people
weird.
so extreme?
I don't know. I would want to share the responsibility, I think. Like, I enjoy driving, and you can ask Josh, like, when we travel, I'm a much better driver than I am a passenger. Like, when my girlfriend drives, or Josh, or my own dad, or anybody, I'm always, like, gripping and, like, scared. But, like, when I drive, I feel like I'm in control. But, yeah, I definitely want to, like, share the responsibility. That's a lot of driving.
Maybe he was concerned that people would be slightly hungover or just not capable or exhausted. I mean, maybe he was always one of those, like, the letter of the law kind of guy. So I think he felt more comfortable being like, we're on Warped Tour, dude, and there's a lot of craziness, a lot of crazy bands. I know I can trust myself.
True.
And also because we did work hard to get there. And that was, you say, for money or exposure, that was a lot of exposure for us and fun. Although you're right, it's always happening on a racetrack in Florida.
Yeah.
Come on.
Exactly.
Sometimes
but,
you
I
get
have
lucky.
Totally. I have so many good memories of Warped Tour. I went to probably 4 or 5 of them, and much like these Christian shows that I went to when I was a little bit younger, Warped Tour was just your one chance a year to see, 20 bands that you want to see. I remember seeing so many bands that I would have never got to see otherwise. Like, the first time I saw Saves the Day, it was like Warped Tour 98. They were on a little tiny side stage. That's still to this day, it's one of my favorite performances of all time. Then you get to see your big dogs like NoFX, and one year I saw Eminem, so that was cool.
Oh yeah.
I started putting some hip hop in there and think Method Man or
that
something.
99 Warped Tour was like pretty eclectic. It was like Jurassic 5, Black Eyed Peas, pre-Fergie.
Oh yeah, that's very, very eclectic.
Yeah, it was, those were a lot of fun. One year I got to go to the one in San Antonio, and it was at a Downs, like a racetrack, so it was on grass at least, but there was no trees. But San Antonio, it's I guess kind of like
humid,
desert. So
probably
it's like
humid.
cold during the morning, then hot as hell during the day. So I have this hoodie on, like, because I'm chilly. I'm waiting in line for the gates to open, and then throughout the day, I think temperatures got up to like 102. But I'm wearing this hoodie because it's got to be cool, man. And then I get called out on stage by Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 for being the idiot wearing a hoodie in San Antonio.
Oh, you never told me that.
I never told you that story? Yeah, and then we went
No.
to they had like a tent for meet and greets later that day. So I had the hoodie wrapped around my waist. It's like, cause I'm not going to, where am I going to put it? So, and then Mark noticed me and said, oh, look, it's that dumbass who was wearing a hoodie. And they like, oh, hi.
And how did that make you feel, Josh?
Like a real idiot.
Yes.
Like, partially like cool that he notices me, but he's noticing me for the wrong reasons that I don't want him to notice me for.
Right.
But yeah.
So once you joined 5 Iron, now you're a founding member, correct?
Yeah, so almost all of us except for one.
Okay, great.
We've only had one switch, which that's huge for a ska
That's-
band and for a band that's been around since '95.
That's a huge deal. I love some other ska bands. Like, I love Real Big Fish, but they have been through lots and lots of member changes.
Oh, yeah, Aaron.
I
So
love them, but the same thing is it stops being a band. It's a band when you look people in the eye and say, I will not do this without you, so stop being mad at me.
Right.
Like the Ataris
so-
or that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
So after the band started, kind of give me a little bit of a trajectory on the band in the early days. So you guys started jamming, writing. Then what was
Yeah,
next?
we were super lucky because being in Denver, Colorado, you are pretty much in the middle of the country where all these touring bands come through. And not only that, but there wasn't a massive ska scene. So the first year we're opening up for, Pie Tasters and Less Than Jake and Goldfinger and Blue Meanies and just all these bands, right? Skank and Pickle, all these bands right off the bat because they need a local band right off the bat. And a couple of promoters start finding out about us and are like, well, they're funny, they're fun, they're good enough, right? We're just good enough, put it that way. And then when we begin, I know every band thinks about this differently, but we in the beginning were very much a missional band. And by that, I mean, we had a band pastor, we had an agenda, we had a mission statement. We had benevolences attached to every show. So whether we were raising money or socks or pants or blankets, we had a band house with Bible studies that we would invite people to. Homeless people could stay. We would have communion with Twinkies and grape soda because that's what we had.
Yeah.
We were legit and we were serious. So
you weren't just Christians in a band. You were a Christian band.
That concept didn't even exist. We hadn't been asked that yet.
Right.
So anyway, we knew we wanted to be on a Christian label. Mm-hmm. That was super important to us. And we were almost a little too legalistic for our own good in some ways because, no alcohol, no rated R movies, no people of the opposite sex in your hotel room, things like this, right? Mm-hmm. So when we played Cornerstone, we were starting to get approached by different labels. And the reason we joined 5 Minute Walk is we played a tiny little festival called the Vision Fest. And listening to this now, I just heard Masaki, who's our producer of all of our albums, except for the last one. He was on the Magnified Pod podcast. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
So anyway, he was interviewed and I just learned something for the first time. He was annoyed with us because we had 2 shows booked on one night for this Vision Fest. We were going to play a show, and then they were Dime Store Prophets, which was a bigger Christian band, kind of college rock, was going to headline. And we basically said, no, we're going to headline because we have another show and then we'll come. So just set up all the gear. And not only that, but we're coming with an annoying crowd because we're big. But he was blown away. It sounds cocky, but he was very impressed with us. And so much so that when they drove out of town, he got on a payphone and called Frank and said, you got to sign these guys.
Oh, wow.
And Frank's first question wasn't, were they good, was, do they love the Lord? And Saki's like, I don't know, but let's get to know him. So Frank flew us to California. And our first show in California, you know the mayhem, the mosh pits, the encouraging mosh pits, us crowd surfing, the insanity, the costumes. We had all of this. And Frank's eyeballs are popping out of his head, but then he's kind of smiling, but kind of scared. And then that's kind of where it took off as far as signing to a Christian label.
Mm-hmm. So like how your dad felt, how all of our dads felt about these. Like, I don't know if this is Christian. These kids are jumping off the stage and going wild.
Going insane.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, so we had this weird duality, and this started in the beginning, being missional. In our mission statement, it said, we aim to play 50% quote-unquote secular shows and 50% Christian shows. And sometimes we would open up for Wesley Willis in a little warehouse in Denver that no Christian kid should come to, heaven forbid. Or we'd play an open mic in, a podunk bar. Or we'd go on Warped Tour, all those kind of things. Or Ska Against Racism tour, right? Mm-hmm. Or we would also be doing massive, huge Christian festivals, opening up for Michael W. Smith and Jackie Velasquez and, all those. We'd usually be on, the fringe stage. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we'd be on, even Acquire the Fire would sometimes pick us up. Or in New Zealand, we were like the host band of a church camp. So just all over the spectrum, very much all over the place.
I haven't heard Acquire the Fire in years. My friend Chris Marvin, he lives in Chicago now, well, Chicago adjacent. He and our friend Jared would go to Acquire the Fire every year, and then they went so much that they got asked to play in one of the bands there, like one of the worship kind of bands. So that's where they started their thing. Yeah, we
had a big issue that night because they were like, well, we showed up with Weezer t-shirts and Avail t-shirts, and they're just like, well, first of all, these secular t-shirts. And we're like, yeah, well, first of all, the not liking our secular t-shirts. They're like, second of all, wallet chains.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
serious, because they're going to pass around a coffin, and people are going to put their secular music, their pornography, their rubbers, their cigarettes, their wallet chains.
Oh,
no.
So the only reason we decided to play this massive, probably 2,000 kids, arena, the only reason was for the 5 kids smoking out back that said they came to see us.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we'll do it. We'll put our shirts inside out, play our little set, and go hang out with Denny's with you.
Right.
We were just talking, there's this group chat, or group, I guess, Facebook group page for the Outer Cafe venue for people that post memories, pictures and videos of old shows and stuff. And one of them was did you ever just smoke cigarettes out in the parking lot, in between bands or whatever? Yeah, I mean, a lot, you go out, to be a cool kid. There, I think there were more non-Christians that went to Christian shows than there were Christians. But that's a good way for the Christian bands to to
hang out with
disciple
people.
them. You can lead people to God for punk rock music. So there were some punk rock bands that were way better than like secular bands. MXPX being one of them.
What's the band? I'm struggling because I'm thinking of this one band that I know you guys would love, and I love as far as hardcore. Like, I do like some stuff, so I love Hot Water Music. Love.
Oh
them.
yeah.
I love Avail. I won't say I won't love them, but like Living Sacrifice and Zayo, that's not really my jam as much, although I like Grade. Do you know Grade?
Mm-hmm.
What is that band that had I'll sing it. You were more than just a memory. You were more than just a friend. And they do Second Chances.
I'm not sure.
Dude.
Oh.
I can't think of this band. They were on Warped Tour 2002. And anyway, the drummer was a Christian guy, and most of them weren't, but they were the kind of hardcore guys that wear basketball shorts and like, kind of beefy. Mm-hmm. Man, they were good. I wish I could think of who that band is, but they were the toe the line kind of,
Mm-hmm. Well, how
are
funny.
They Christian or are they not?
I just put you were more than just a memory. You were more than just a friend. Well, I don't think it's this. Hoobastank was the first.
No.
Not them.
Look up Second Chances, maybe. They also did Modern English, I'll Stop the World and Melt with You. Dude, they were cute. All the guys were cute.
I'm looking.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, I don't know. Dang it. We'll have to put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll think of it because I'm trying to remember some of these bands. I don't. So the interesting thing, and I was talking to my husband before I came on here, and I was thinking about there was that sad little time. This sounds rude. I'm sorry. I should change it. There was a time when, like even Cornerstone Festival, right, in Macomb, Illinois, it was all of a sudden it became so many hardcore bands. So many, metal, new metal, and it was generator stages, just aisles and aisles of them. And I think that in some ways that was the downfall of the creative music vibe.
Right.
It was just oversaturated. And the same thing happened with ska, right? When everybody, jumped on the bandwagon and was trying to do it. But I just think it's interesting how, for whatever reason, metal kind of took over the whole music scene.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like always 4 guys and guitars. Ooh, that's fun and interesting. And it got really old.
Yeah, I can totally see that. When it first came out, like I remember the first time I heard like the first Korn album, like it was so different and so fresh. And, it's kind of, how grunge killed butt rock, new metal kind of killed grunge, in a sense. And I remember hearing
Stop, my head. Anyway, okay. New metal killed grunge. No, I think ska killed grunge, but in a good way.
Right.
You think so? How come?
Because we were all angry and angsty, and Kurt Cobain had killed himself. And even myself, my first band was called Arson the Arson, and I was in high school, like 93, and I would bite the heads off of Peeps and throw it in the crowd, and I sang a song about Generation X-Man and how he did himself off, and I said the last line, which is brutal, and I'm kind of embarrassed, but it was like, I may not be as good as you, and I screamed that about 20 times, and I'd say, but at least I'm not dead.
Whoa.
I know.
Angsty.
But I think all those kids, right, the grungy kind of angsty, mad, then we all went ska. And it was like, now we're wearing extra large happy t-shirts and bright colors. And so I do feel like the ska scene kind of, and mod at the time, like Vespas and mod and little polos and stuff, that kind of went into, at least in the cities. Maybe the thing is different for cities and countries. Because in the city, you have more access to, I don't know, different scenes. Whereas if you live in the countryside, I know growing up in the countryside, it's like rap and metal and country.
Right. And that was kind of the cool thing about Oklahoma. We were kind of in the middle, but having these venues we could go to, you'd go see a punk band and a hip hop band and a ska band and all these sometimes on the same bill. And Oklahoma City has always been this kind of, it still is kind of this melting pot of all different cultures, like you can go to 4 different venues on a weekend and see 4 largely different acts or bills,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's super cool. I love it.
Yeah, man, when ska came, around to me, it was the third wave, 5 Iron and Supertones and, Less Than Jake and like all these bands. It was it was like I was listening to a bunch of like angsty punk rock and then ska came out like, what is this? Horns? And it's just like it's super like
nerds.
No, but it made like it's just it's infectious. It just makes you happy. If you're in a pissed off mood, you're angry, it's like put on some ska, man, like you'll be fine. And if anybody's like, oh, ska sucks, like then you suck. Like ska's great.
I don't get it. How can you be unhappy when you hear a good ska song? Like it makes me happy. Like when we watched the documentary, Josh and I both watched it quarantined in our own house, passed it back and forth.
Right.
And that, as soon as it kicked in, I sat down on my couch and I was like, this is gonna make me feel so good.
Your heart starts. You're hearing Tim Armstrong's voice. It's like, like clear your throat, dude.
Yeah, he's like in Jamaica.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. When I started,
good.
I was like, "Is there something wrong with my audio?" And it was like, "Oh, it's Tim Armstrong."
No.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
And
we first, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
When we first started that movie, so we the way I got into it, which is awesome, is I was the first person to say yes to be in it. So years ago, Taylor reached out to me, and he's like, "I'm making this movie about ska. You want to be in it?" And my first, I always say yes to everything. I'm like, even going to breakfast with Josh, like, yes, let's do it. Yes, I say yes, yes. And then my job became, well, help me connect with band members and help me convince them that it's legitimate. Like it's the real deal, like be an advocate for the film. And so my job at Back to the Beach was going up and calling and finding old band members that I hadn't seen in like 20 years and being like, "Hey, it's Jeff from 5 Iron. You want to be in this movie?" And they're like, I'm like, "I'll have some beers for you and we'll pick you up. And then, you can go to Airbnb and do an interview about back in the day." And they're like, "Okay, cool." So
Yeah.
yeah.
Coax them in with free
I
beers.
did want.
That's
Yeah,
what
who can
boys
turn
does.
that down? Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Anthem. But yeah, so we watched the movie or the documentary, and a lot of the information in the documentary, I knew bits and pieces of it, but to have it all kind of laid out together was really nice. And I just got to say, it was so well done.
Yeah.
I watched it twice. I watched
Yeah.
it, and then 2 days later, I watched it again just to kind of pick up some of the things I might have missed the first time.
Pick it up.
And then also pick it up.
Pick it
and
up.
and also the bonus scenes, which are longer than the documentary
I haven't
itself.
watched the bonus stuff.
Oh, you
yet.
gotta watch
some
should.
bonus.
I mean, I was there for a lot of it, but I should watch it.
Right.
The thing is, when we first started, that was the hard part. So the first rendition I watched of it, like the first cut, was 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then it was like, because a lot of the extra stuff became, in the back scenes now, right? But it was like, how do we take out the ska puns? How do we take out this scene? How do we take out that scene? There's too many bands, so many bands. And it just got to be like, really, the first one was like actually too long. It was like so much. So it was really hard to cut pieces because you're attached to it. And it was also kind of hard to find the storyline, but I think that the arc with ending on nostalgia and coming back, and some of the piece, like when he talks to me at the end, and some of the bands of saying, I think it's coming back and our kids are going to be into it. I think ending with nostalgia, one of my suggestions for that was from the 5 Iron DVD that we made, because Reese did a really good job of like, oh my gosh, 3 hours of 5 Iron footage was terrible. And then it's like, but you love us because of our hearts and nostalgia. And so we kind of did that kind of same rise up with this movie, and I think it worked really well.
It did. I enjoyed it. I watched it with my girlfriend. She enjoyed it. She's not really into ska, but I could tell she was like leaning forward in her chair, like she was really interested. It was presented very well. And I grew up listening to punk and ska and stuff like that, as well as nu metal. But one of my favorite bands, and I saw them probably, Josh, what was that? 4 months ago, the Aquabats.
Aquabats, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
man.
Yeah, and they're still doing it. They're a way different band than they were when they started out.
Right.
But I love those guys. I've got a kid. She loves the Super Show on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
His interview footage, and whether it was
So
in the
good.
regular movie, or the
Yeah,
extra
so
features,
good.
I was glued to it. I was, and for him to like walk through and show off all that stuff, because they're a band that has a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I was just so thrilled that he was in it. But I do have a question regarding him. When I watched the part when he was talking about Travis Barker
Right.
leaving
He seems
for Blink,
sad. He seems
That's-
sad, like really sad.
very sad. That's what I was going to ask.
Probably.
And he seems like a really nice guy. But I kind of felt like A, he was sad, and B, maybe he was a little pissed off.
Probably.
Like to this day, right?
I don't know.
Like the
It
one that
sounds-
got away,
sound like
right?
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if anything, and if you know anything about the Aquabats, and they're Mormon,
Yeah.
Right.
very Mormon. Like for us being a Christian band too, you think of the one that got away. Sometimes it also means spiritually. Sometimes it means like,
Yeah.
well, he went to this rock star life of fame and glory and chicks and blah blah blah, drugs, whatever. I don't
Right.
know. But maybe it's the comparison of, wow, what would your life have been like if you stayed in Aquabats?
Right.
Totally.
So there's
Well, I was glad
the
that
duality of it.
Totally. I was glad that Travis had a little clip in there where he was like, I wish I could have played in both bands because I would have, but I couldn't imagine, I've never been famous. So like joining Blink 182 as they're like on their rise to stardom. And then they were like one of the biggest bands in the world.
Like if I really think about Five Iron, if I really think about all the guys in my band, I could not see any of them doing that.
Really?
No, because we're a family. Like it's a little different. It's a little niche. Like we play a lot of shows with MXPX, and it's fun, and they go out and they have a good time after the show. And often with us, we end up in a hotel room watching YouTube videos with a 6-pack and a bottle of whiskey we share, and just have fun with each other.
Mm-hmm. That is so special for a band to share that.
We're nerds. We like to order pizzas and listen to Frank Sinatra. And
sounds like band camp.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it, and we went around in a circle and said, why do you do this? Like, why are you still doing this? We kind of, one of those things where we hadn't talked about it in a long time. And everybody in the band said, well, you're my best friends. I want to see you. I want to hang out. And so I really feel like for some bands, it is, it's expensive way to see your friends, but it is kind of it's a tie-in to part of who you are, but it's also so much more than just the band part.
That totally makes sense.
You guys are like, you're holding on to the thing that, Robbie and I we were in bands in high school and stuff, but the thing that you get you together is, you want to play shows, but it's like, well, you're my best friend. Why don't we do this thing we love together? And you guys are still doing that after all these years.
Hang out.
Yeah.
We still love doing that.
Get to see the country. It's a win-win,
So back to pick it up, we were talking about interviews, and one of the hardest ones to do, and I don't know if you picked this up, but Aaron Barrett was with Real Big Fish. Mm-hmm. He was so hard. We had to get to the airport, and we allowed like 4 hours to interview him, which is insane because most people took an hour, right? Not even.
Right.
In and out.
We couldn't get him to answer questions straight. He would ramble. He would talk. What we learned and what was helpful is when we would hand him a prop, like the Gold Album or the guitar, then he could stay on topic and actually talk about ska and music and the band. And it made it a lot better, but that was a hard one. I was like, I'm going to miss my flight. We have to get something. We're not going to set this up again. How can we do this? How can we be here with this guy now? We got to do it. And it was beautiful, like the footage and everything. So thank God for props.
You
definitely improvised.
Yeah, my wife and I were watching that together, and that's when we were watching, like, does he look pissed off to you or something? Like, he looks
he was
kind of
uncomfortable.
Like,
he was very awkward. Like, it's interesting. Like, my husband's one of those kind of guys. Like, on stage, he's dynamic. But, backstage or just in real life, kind of an introvert, not liking a lot of attention. So you take for granted that everybody's going to be as animated like Dave from Mustard Plug. You're not going to get that.
Right.
See, and that's what was interesting to me about Aaron is, with the glasses and the funny shirts and the hair and the band and the music and everything on stage, especially back in the day, I saw Real Big Fish not too long ago, and they've changed over time, but they still are a very fun band to watch live. But I remember when Sell Out came out and Turn the Radio Off, I went and bought that at Blockbuster Music, and it was this new kind of music to me, and it was kind of, I don't know if it's the horns or the lyrics or what, but it's kind of like flamboyant, for lack of a better word. It's like out there. It's like in your face.
Polka.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then when I saw that interview with him, I was like, man, is he like upset or just like kind of socially awkward, uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because you take for granted too that we have 2 cameras on him, and we have like a lighting guy and 2 of us watching and running the cameras, and that was cool too because I'd never produced an album. A movie. I'd never done any. They call me a producer. I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, well, you're going to run some of the cameras. We'll teach you how to do it. You're going to be a liaison between the bands, and you're going to go get them and pick them up, and you're going to help scout for places and visuals to film. And I'm like, I am going to do all this. I'm going to learn how to do it all. And then on top of that, which is the part of my gift that I'm good at, is now you get to basically like booking a show, which I used to do. I used to book all the 5 Iron shows in the beginning. Like, you are going to be the promoter. You're going to book the screenings in Denver, and I want you to have like an after party, and I want you to have VIP, and I want you to pick a space and a theater. And it was awesome. It was like, oh, I get to do my vibe. This is for zero money. I'm stoked.
Right. It does seem like a great way to learn a lot of different things, I work in video as well, and kind of to go back to the Aaron thing, myself included, I know what it's like when you lav somebody up and they just freeze. Or as soon as they see the red light on the camera, it's like, we could be joking around, having a good time. That red light comes on. It's just like, oh no. Oh no, this is real now,
Right.
But that's cool. I'm so glad that you were involved and you got to learn some things. And so if people want to get a copy of this or watch it? Is it on streaming services or is it just
Yeah,
hard
it is.
copy only?
There's links now to stream it, and so yeah, people can stream it or they can also buy it. The other cool thing is we just did get the pressing and put out a vinyl that has a bunch of songs from a lot of the bands,
Cool.
and we all agreed. We gave these songs, and they're beautiful. They look amazing, and the vinyl's going to be cool. And it's just a compilation of something special that we put together. So I hope people buy these things also because. Just because it was a labor of love. Like nobody was doing it there's no money out of it, but it was really fun.
I want a hard copy. I watched Josh's copy. I want to get a copy. I would
You can
love
get a
the record.
DVD or you can get a VHS.
Oh, really? On VHS?
Or the guys in Less Than Jake, they wanted those, so we made a few.
VHS.
Oh, that's awesome. I would love a VHS copy. That would be
And we have
great.
DVD and we have Blu-ray, of course, too.
Okay, cool. And so is there a website that people can go to
I think probably just Google pick it up.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, anyone who was, who was ever into ska, even in the slightest, it is a gigantic trip down memory lane, and you learn a lot about the ska scene. I learned a lot of stuff. I knew that bands got big, but in my mind, I just thought, this is just music. People are I didn't know like gold records, like all this kind, and then like the rise and fall, like apparently it was like a super. To me, it never went away because I listened to it, but yeah, I guess in the mainstream, like you would see Real Big Fish on TRL, and then all of a sudden it's like.
Well, what's interesting too is one of the guys, and I can't remember his name, but he's a booking agent, and he said ska changed the scene to all ages, and that is very true. I think, when they would say Mike Park, we will not play a bar, and same thing. Like now, my favorite thing is to play a bar that is all ages, where it's a few different bands. Like we have been playing with MXPX, which that is a perfect fit because people can bring their kids, they can bring their mom. But we've been playing with like old school ska bands like Mephistopheles, Pilfers, Mustard Plug, and just people coming out and being like, I wanted to bring my kids and let them see this. Aquabats have they're even more geared towards kids.
That Aquabat show is crazy. Like it was geared towards kids, and it was But as an adult, 38-year-old man, I still enjoyed the hell out of it. But seeing these like little 5-8-year-old kids just in Aquabats costumes, like going crazy for it. Like this is the coolest thing ever. That's so awesome.
The only time we played with them that I can remember is in a bowling alley in Golden, Colorado called
Perfect
Golden
venue
Bowl.
for ska.
Yeah, perfect venue for Aquabats and 5-iron.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I saw the Aquabats, I came home and I'm sure we've all done this, like an old band like that you used to really like, they're coming through town, so you go see them, and then after you see them, you're all hyped up on them, so you're going back through their catalog and listening to them. And that's when I introduced my daughter to them, and she's 5, so she was just like, "Oh wow, this is so cool!" And then we started watching the show. And looking back, I wish I would have taken her. Now I promised her. I said, "Listen,
but it's kind of loud too." So I've seen kids cry.
Yeah.
Like some people bring them to 5-iron shows,
cans.
and they're like, "My kid's crying," and I'm like, "Well, that's kind of sad. They weren't ready."
Yeah.
You want it to be a good experience.
Yeah, I've gone to
next
a couple
time
of those...
they come through, I'm going to take her.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
I've gone to some of those 5-iron MXPX shows and just like looking out at the crowd and seeing like there's like nights where it's like it's all ages, but it's mostly just people around our age, and then the next night, Saturday night, it's like with the kids, and just seeing these little kids get into it, and like kids with like MXPX t-shirts or 5-iron Frenzy t-shirts on. It's like great. Like it's not the music like in the documentary, like it's not gonna die. Like it's just gonna go on to another generation, and hopefully in like 10 years we'll see like these kids start ska bands or punk bands and just keep going. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of brings me to my last point that I have here. I feel like whether it's through like cheesy meme culture or this documentary or just music in general, I feel like maybe there's like a swing coming back the other way. Like ska I see ska more out in the ether of the internet than I have in the last 10 years, 5 years.
Fashion
part
too.
Of it, yeah. Part of it is because a lot of these bands want to get back together because they want to see their friends. And there is an audience for it. But the main thing is you're in a healthy place. Like you took enough of a break. Like for 5-iron, it was 9 years. We broke up in 2003. I got married 2004, had 2 kids. We got back in 2011. My kids were still little, but it was like physically, emotionally, mentally, I can do it again. I can focus. And I want to, because at that point I'm like, why am I wearing clothes from Target and listening to the radio? Like, I hate myself.
Right.
Put good music back in my, life. And so I think for a lot of us, we're on the other side of just figuring out family life and real job and all this stuff to where it's like, oh yeah, I want to pick up my guitar and this would be a great outlet.
Right, nowadays it's not as taxing as you don't have to jump in a bus and then go on tour for like 2 months. Like let's just fly to Orlando for the weekend and play a show there and make some cash and go back home.
And the best is when, so once in a while, we get booked 2 nights in the same venue. So like at the Exit Inn, or we were also in Chicago and we did that, where the first night it's like starts at 7 and it's more all ages. And then the next night it's like starts at 8 and it's more party. And if you're staying at the same venue, that is fun.
And
well,
that's going to be
knows.
really nice.
Josh knows.
Yeah.
We have a good time.
And you guys use Kemper, so right, or Axe-FX? Is it Kemper? Like it's
I have
all
no idea
in
what you're
ear
talking
stuff.
about. You're speaking.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
there's no amps. I mean, there's amps on stage,
No.
but
No
there's
monitors.
just all it's all monitors.
we
So
all
you
have
guys don't have
in-ears
to worry
and we
about
use,
hauling gear.
it's called Master Fader is the app on our phones, and so we can all control. I can control every drum, how much toms I want, how much cymbals I want, and that
From
keeps
your
you
phone?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
sick.
no
Game
monitor
changer,
guy.
man.
Technology is so
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah.
So because of that, you're not physically exhausted, fatigued from like hearing drums so loud and not hearing horns. Like I can hear, and what's sad is most of the guys in the band don't want to hear horns. Like while they're,
Right.
they kind of maybe a tiny bit, but you can hear like what you want, your mix. You can, every one of us, 8 of us, can cater it to our own in-ears, which is
That's
awesome.
so cool. I didn't even know that existed. That's such a
It
great
does.
tool.
It's very expensive, and you have to fly with some of the gear, like some of the preamps and stuff, and you have to know how to patch it in. So we have to get to venues at about 2:30, so that even if we're not the headliner, it takes like 2 hours to patch it in.
Gotcha. That's
Right.
cool.
Very cool, game changer. Yeah. Thank you, Kickstarters, Kickstarter supporters.
Oh, by the way, so I Googled Pick It Up documentary. The easiest way to learn about it is facebook.com/ska movie.
Okay.
Easy to remember.
But
So
we
there
still
go.
didn't remember this one band. The band.
I know. I Googled a few times and it said Adele. I was like, no, it's not Adele. Okay, yeah. It'll come to us as soon as we get done recording, I'm sure.
So, Leanor, you said something earlier about like noticing yourself wearing Target clothes and that kind of thing, and like wanting to get out of that. That kind of reminded me of your podcast. It's Too Punk to Be a Hippie. Like that's kind of the whole vibe of it. Is like, what do you?
Yeah.
How do I live a more conscious life in a consumerist culture? So talk a little about the podcast. I really love your show. It's a cool show.
Yeah. So my mom is, like I said, my parents are Mexican. My mom's New Mexican, which that vibe is very close to the earth. Very much gardening, very much drying herbs for tea, very much old school. When you're sick, there's some weird stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Sure.
So point being, like I grew up with that kind of background. I grew up in the countryside. And now I live a very urban life in Denver, Colorado, with a house and a yard. And the past few years, learning how to garden, starting to learn how to compost, and then having kids, a lot of what they learn in school is all around climate change, animal extinction, styrofoam, not using styrofoam, like all these different things that are at the front of their minds nonstop. And so I thought if I created a podcast about this, it would give me a built-in accountability. Because for me, I know it's one thing to say, wow, I want to do this, but then I am an extrovert and I want to share this with people and I want to learn. So if I post about a compost and someone has some info, then I'll do it. Or if I talk about grass-fed beef and think that that's better for the environment, instead of meatpacking plant crap, then maybe I'll do it. And so I've kind of started this podcast slowly because it's taken a long time for me. And the uphill battle for me is the back end stuff, the computer stuff. Like I'm not super savvy with all this stuff. I'm 44. I'll almost be 44. And I'm not scared, but I'm definitely just barely baby steps. And so it is intimidating. Like I'm the one who has to post the Libsyn and change the website and get what's an RSS feed? Like, so that stuff has been very hard. It's like learning a new language, but the talking's fine. I love that. Like that's my favorite. So I've had all different kind of guests on it. And my main thing I want to do, which I'm going to start going into, is I want to interview other musicians and learn from them. What are those hippie things they do? Like we know, the guys in NoFX or the guys in Bad Religion or all these bands that we like. And what are they like? I'm pretty sure Bad Religion's vegetarians. I'm trying to remember. But like, I want to know the back end of people's lives of like, what do you do for the earth that maybe doesn't have a platform? Most people don't want to, talk about it because it sounds like bragging.
Right.
But if you really want to say, where do you get your T-shirts sourced? Or, tell me about your garden, or tell me about, are you vegan? Like, there's debate on all kinds of things on what's better for the earth, but at least we're trying and having the conversation. And to me, there's not enough punk rock songs about environmentalism. I've been looking into it, and there's a handful, but that is another big subject that I think the next generation wants to grasp onto. Like, that's their anthem, one of their anthems. We talked about equality. They're talking about equality for the earth and animals too.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I'm just barely starting, but I am super stoked.
So how many episodes are you deep at this point?
I think I'm 7 or 8.
Okay, and where can people find it?
toopunktobeahippie.com. Or they can, you look into that and I do it myself. I know how to do it on Apple and on Stitcher and on Google Play.
Yeah.
Everybody has that's kind of annoying too. Everybody's like, oh, I found it on these 10 sites, but what about that one random one that I like? It's like, oh
I know.
My gosh.
We get that question sometimes. Yeah, we get that question sometimes like, well, is it on XYZ podcast app? And we're like, if it pulls from iTunes, it is. And
not only that, but I live in a concrete house, and I love my house, but it is like a bunker. It's flat roof, it looks like a factory, and it echoes. And so for the first few podcasts, one of them is really short because I was angry. I was getting annoyed at the echo, and I was just like, forget it. I'm just putting it out. I've spent like half a day, and my sound in my house is not going to change. I don't have carpet. It's all concrete. And that's also part of my environmental things. Like, I don't want carpet. I don't want all this stuff. It's very minimalistic. And so how the sound is, I'm just getting over it.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Put it out, man. People will
Put
listen
it
to
out.
it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing the show. We really appreciate your time. And like I said, the documentary was fantastic. I think whether you're a ska fan or not, there's something that everybody can learn. And I was super thrilled to get a chance to watch it twice. And I'm going to spread the word. That's one of the reasons we wanted you on the show, was to talk about it and hopefully get some of those VHSs and DVDs sold. And I'm excited for the record. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, very cool. Nice to talk to you guys.
Well, you know what was cool? One last thing.
Yeah.
As far as you said, the record compilation, that kind of brings everything full circle, because in the documentary they talk about the old school ska compilation.
Exactly.
So you're still doing it.
Yeah,
and it's still going to have the same effect, which is I knew about those 4 bands, but I didn't know about those 20.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I learned about so many bands off of comps, for sure.
Exactly.
It just keeps on turning, that wheel in the sky.
That little vinyl keeps on spinning.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you soon, all right?
See you guys. Thank you, boys.
Bye.
Bye.